You come home from work, you're exhausted, and you have to prepare dinner. You open up the refrigerator and you realize very quickly that you have about an hour or two worth of work ahead of you. And you don't really want to do that because you're tired and you've had a long day. What you do want to do is prepare an easy meal for your family that's nutritious and healthy. The key to doing that successfully is to take a day before the work week and prep some key ingredients in advance, the ingredients that take the most amount of time to cook. What I'm going to show you today is how to take advantage of the volume that they have in these club warehouses, make a big batch of prepared ingredients so that when you do come home from work, cooking is going to be a breeze. The first thing that we're going to do in our preparations today is to prepare the onions. Surprisingly enough, the items that take the most amount of time to prepare are onions. They have to cook, they have to brown, they have to wilt. We're gonna have all of our fundamental ingredients prepped and ready to go. So when dinner time comes, you'll be able to prepare a meal no longer than 15-20 minutes.
So right here we have a bag of onions as I purchased it from Costco. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 onions. This will get us enough onions for 3 meals, 3 dinners, and possibly 4 lunches. So the worst part about onions is peeling them and cleaning them. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she would peel onions and it would never bother her eyes. I go through so many onions in the restaurant. In summertime, sometimes we go through like 600 pounds a week. You would think after doing it for 40 some odd years, I would get used to it. No. Onions always make me cry. I've tried all the gimmicky things and the glasses, lighting a candle, and I don't know. For me, it doesn't work. Onions and I don't have a fantastic relationship, but I love them. I used to follow this nutritionist. He told me once that the 2 greatest ingredients on the planet are garlic and onions. I may have to agree with that. My grandmother used to peel onions. She would just take off the outer layer of skin. Not the lazy way like I'm doing it right now. Take off the whole layer. So the preparation involved with making food for an entire week, it's simple but tedious. And this prep and cooking time and everything will take you about an hour. Not an hour of work time, just an hour of cook time, an hour of prep time. I give it on the PETA scale probably a 6. And I mean that. I really gotta wipe my eyes here. Oh. You give these onions a little bit of rinse. Get that skin off. If you haven't watched my video on how to use a knife, I highly recommend it. These onions here, very simple. I'm just gonna cube them coarsely because the dishes that I'm going to use them for don't require a minced onion, don't require any kind of special sliced onion. Basically cut them into roughly 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch slices. There's no reason why you can't use a food processor for this, but I have a suspicion that by the time you take out the food processor, figure out what blade to use, clean the food processor and put it away, it's just much easier if you simply use a knife. This is about as many carrots as I'm gonna use for chicken soup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 medium-sized carrots. I like a lot of carrots in my chicken soup. I like the sweetness, I like the starchiness that they're gonna impart into the soup, and this is what I'm gonna use. Now, the beautiful thing about being able to use these carrots at home is that you don't have to peel them. A lot of the nutrients are in the skin. Taking the skin off is more aesthetic than necessary, but you really need to make sure that these are clean. I'm gonna give them a nice rinse, and you wanna kind of want to rub the carrot in your hands so that to make sure that there's any soil. You'll feel any kind of soil on the carrot, so it's kind of important that you use your hand. Some people use a brush. I don't think a brush is necessary, but make sure you get all around the carrot just to make sure that there's no soil on it. carrots can tend to be a little difficult to slice up because they roll, and that's a hazard. So I'm going to show you a little trick on how to cut carrots. I think that the lower half of the carrot doesn't necessarily need to be cut in half. So I'm going to cut the narrow parts of the carrot off, keep those to the side. And then I'm going to deal with the thick parts of the carrot. Now, at some point the carrot will stop rolling, and that's where you hold it and slice down the middle. It kind of has a natural flat spot you have to find. And don't chop it, just kind of slice into it slowly, there's no rush. That's a natural spot right there. Slice in half. And then once they're in half, it's a piece of cake. You cut them quite easily. And I do about half-inch pieces. So when you make chicken soup and you have it in your fridge, as I'm going to show you in an upcoming episode, I'm going to show you multiple ways to make phenomenal chicken soup. You don't have to prep any of this. All right, and last but not least, we're going to prep our celery. I love that you can get organic celery from a Club Warehouse. And really, celery is a very strong element to add to anything. It overpowers it, but in smaller quantities, the flavor just brightens everything up. You have to make sure your celery is clean. To do that, I cut the bottoms, and I cut a little bit of the tops. Then I rinse each stalk individually. Please don't cut off the leaves. The leaves impart such an amazing flavor. A little over 1/4 inch, maybe a 1/2 inch. As you get to the top, when the piece starts to get narrower, you can go a little thicker. I'm gonna set aside about 4 cut raw onions for our chicken soup. The rest I'm gonna bake off in the oven. It looks like about 4 to me. Now, the rest of these onions here need just 2 ingredients. I'd like to use an avocado oil, and I'm just gonna drizzle on about, say 3 tablespoons, and my favorite all-time salt, Celtic sea salt. So I wanna pull some of that moisture out of there, and just mix that in by hand. And while you're mixing it, the onions that were connected together will start to flake apart, and you'll feel them. So just keep stirring a little bit until those onions are slivers rather than chunks. So I have my aluminum baking pans here. They're lined with parchment paper. And then I'm gonna prep 2 packages of chicken. I'm gonna leave 1 package aside for my chicken soup, and the other 2 packages I'm gonna pre-cook. When they're pre-cooked and they're in the refrigerator, I'm all set. Got dinner ready to go in no time. Have our sheet pan. There's nice little amount of fat on the thighs. I do like using chicken thighs. It's one of my favorite selections for the simple reason that it has a lot more moisture in it than the breast. And calorie-wise, the difference is insignificant. There really isn't a heck of a lot more calories in chicken breast than there is in chicken thighs than there is in chicken breast. So I go for moisture every time. Now, let's look at this chicken. This piece here is the thickest piece. That is the piece that's going to get our probe. Remember, if you want to cook like a pro and you want to have professional results, you can't go by eye, you can't go by feel, you can't go by oven temperature. You have to use a thermometer. So I'm going to take my thermometer and stick it into the center of the thickest piece of chicken thigh on this plate. Besides having onions and vegetables prepared in advance in the refrigerator, you're gonna need a carb. Now, quinoa is an interesting carb because it's not considered a grain, it is actually a seed. And it's one of the few carbs that has a lot of protein in it. So I love to have quinoa prepared in advance in the refrigerator. You could use it almost anywhere. You can put it in your chicken soup and you can use it as a side dish. You don't have to boil the water first and then add the quinoa to it like pasta or rice. I just use a 2-to-1 ratio of water to quinoa. So 4 cups of water, 1 teaspoon of Celtic sea salt to every cup of quinoa you use. We're going to use 2 cups of quinoa, so I'm just going to put 2 teaspoons. This is a teaspoon. 2 teaspoons of sea salt, but you know, if you were to measure it out, that would be a teaspoon. And then 2 cups of quinoa to my 4 cups of water. You just pop it on the stove and cook it. Simple. Okay, looks like our quinoa has come to a boil. Just gonna give it a little bit of a quick stir, just like that. Lower it to a simmer and just cover it a little bit, like that. Another great vegetable to have prepped in the fridge are these beautiful multicolored peppers. I believe a lot of the vegetables that come in these packages at Costco, BJ's, and all those other club warehouses are already rinsed. We're gonna cut the tops and we're gonna slice them down the middle. Cut the top, slice it down the middle. Gonna put them back in the bowl and add a little bit of avocado oil to them, a little bit of our Celtic sea salt, just make sure the oil spreads out evenly. Put them on our pan. Gonna pop them in the oven with the onions and the chicken. So it's been about 7 minutes. Quinoa's done. I'm gonna turn it off, but it's not done yet. We want it to still absorb some of that liquid at the bottom of the pan. See it right there. Now we're just gonna leave it covered for another, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes until that liquid is absorbed. All right, it looks like our chicken has come to temp. Let's take a look. Yep, that's done. Now, when you take the probe out of the thermometer, remember that it is extremely, extremely hot. So the chicken was brought up to a temperature of 160 degrees. The actual temperature that it should be on is 165. If we bring it to 160 and we put it in a Ziploc bag for about 10 minutes or so, 10 minutes, it will continue to cook. Once it's in the Ziploc bag, you want to leave it in there, sealed on the counter for a few minutes so that it can come up to temp. But when you put it back in the fridge and you want to cool that chicken down, you have to make sure that that Ziploc bag is open. Otherwise, it's going to take a very long time for it to cool and you'll be at a very big risk of getting sick. Okay, let's take a look at our onions and peppers. And that's exactly what we want. I'll turn the oven off over here. Got a nice little char to them. They're wilted, they're perfect. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we can possibly just dump them into our plate. Oh, that came off kind of nice and easy. I love using parchment paper. Makes my life so much easier. So these are our onions and we're just gonna put them in the refrigerator. I have onions now that I could use in my cooking recipes for the whole week. Look how nice those peppers turned out. Beautiful roasted peppers. Same thing goes with these peppers. Just gonna pop them in the refrigerator and use them for my upcoming recipes. We have our peppers prepped, we have our quinoa prepped, we have our onions prepped, we have our chicken prepped. Everything's ready to go. There is no reason why you cannot come home from work and create a beautiful meal in 15 minutes. So we have 3 packets of chicken. I'm gonna give you in upcoming episodes 3 recipes that will allow you to make 3 wonderful chicken dinners in a matter of minutes. The chicken soup is not gonna be so quick, but if you wanted to, you can make that chicken soup while you were prepping the onions and the carrots and the other chicken. Other than that, the other 2 chicken recipes should take less than 15 minutes. Tune in, watch my upcoming episodes, go to my website, and look at the recipes in detail. Thank you for tuning in.